Okay, folks, happy whatever day it is, Wednesday. We'll give this a shot tonight. We'll see how it goes. Yesterday didn't go too well. Couldn't keep the momentum going. I'm just tired. So let's just do the same thing. We're going to grab some more water and pipettes, and we'll continue basing these Soviet guys. And one thing that we're going to add to him is we need to base him as well as part of the Soviet tank crew. The only figures I actually plan on not putting the actual names for them on there, because there's no point in having every crew member for every single vehicle. That would be absurd. Well, for starters, it would be a lot of painting, and second of all, it would also be a lot of repeat figures. So these guys will only come into play. I'll probably put some kind of marker on them, probably on the bottom. I'll probably write like a 1, 2, 3, whatever. And when you bail out of a vehicle, you can write on the sheet, okay, this guy is number 1, this guy's number 2, or whatever. They shouldn't be on the actual playing surface very much, and not at all unless things go sideways. So I put him in front of me. I guess we'll do him next then. So these are actually probably the first soft plastic figures I've painted. I was going to say professionally, but ever since a kid, completely painted. So we'll see how durable these are. The castings of them are actually okay. It just depends on how bendy they're going to be. But we primed them and sealed them, and they should be okay. Anyways, I got this guy, and these guys already have the base color done to them. At some later point, I did that, and we're going to do these, and then we're going to go ahead and base all the Soviets here. The Maroon Cardinal is here. I'm blessed by the Maroon Cardinal. What a maroon. How you doing today, sir? Yes, I did assume your gender. It's a pretty easy bet that if somebody's on here, it's probably not going to be a lady. I think only one lady that came in here one time. I don't know, it's just stuff that they're not really interested in. My girls aren't in here watching my stuff. I can never remember who the heck this is, who makes these figures, but they're pretty decent. They're really pretty decent. I could find out who it is. I just don't remember. A lot of these plastic figure companies that are of Russian, Ukrainian / origin all kind of blend the same to me. Got it right. Been doing good. Model work is slow but progressively improving. Yeah, just do better than you did the previous time. You don't have to do better than anybody else. Just consistently improve. I was a little bummed out the other night. I actually I don't get bummed out frequently when it comes to my painting. And I wanted a new backdrop. Because of we're doing a lot of this Normandy stuff, and I wanted a backdrop to look more like Normandy other than the other ones that I've done. And I had never painted a backdrop until like 2 years ago. And I just did it with craft paint on a tiny little canvas. I watched a video on how to do it on YouTube. I don't remember who the heck it was, but I watched the video and I'm like, I could do this. And I can use craft paint, right? Because I got plenty of craft paint, and if I'm wasteful with it, I'm okay with that because it's really inexpensive. So I proceeded to paint this thing. Is it up here? This is the first thing I've ever painted on a canvas. This. And it took like no time at all. Now, this part isn't important because I just shoot the back part. But, so I use this as a background for a lot of the photos. And it looks kind of like Italy. We got some cypresses or something like that. Those things that they have up in Tuscany. It's great. I mean, it's turned out better than it possibly could have ever hoped. First time I ever did it. And I did another one. That one turned out really well. I did another one turn out well. And then did one the other day. And I was like, I really don't like how it looked. And I tried fixing it. And, the nice thing is if you don't like it, you can fix it. And, I just do, I watched the thing and it never occurred to me. He's like, yeah, what you got to do is you got to take the canvas and paint burnt sienna all over it. Like a burnt color like this, the whole canvas. So I'm like, well, there's no point in doing the whole canvas. I just need a background. So I made one that was like this, and then I flipped it around and did it like this. Because it's just, all we're doing is blocking off to have the photo behind it. And this literally took 10 minutes to do. So I was happy with this one, I was happy with this one. And I did one the other day, and I didn't have a plan. That's what it was. I'm just like, let's just start painting. It just didn't turn out how I wanted it to. So I'm probably going to have to doctor it up some. It's okay. It's just not what I wanted. So I was a little bummed about that because I don't encounter that. I don't encounter that kind of failure. And I actually fixed it. I fixed it once. So, yeah, I didn't have any reference. I was just totally winging it, and I didn't have a good... if I do shoot some of my games, what I'm probably going to do is I'm probably going to buy some stuff like this cardboard, and just put like up against one side and just spray it light blue. So you're not going to see my garage and shit like that. It's picked up now, but, still it's distracting. I don't know. I'm just brainstorming. I see other people do stuff, and I'm like, I want a game that looks at least as good as some of those. So, again, it doesn't need to make you guys happy. It needs to make me happy, because if I'm not happy with it, I'm just going to be like, I'm just going to do something else. And, these guys will get on these pages, and like, here's a picture of my new guy that I just painted. What do you guys think? And I'm sitting there thinking, who cares what other people think? Do you like it? Because you're always going to find somebody who's like, always says something cute. Like they can't paint, but then they critique your shit all the time. Like the one time that I entered the Historicon painting contest, said, I won't do that again. I'm getting critiqued by somebody who doesn't paint. And I was just doing it because I figured it was like a free gift certificate to buy something. I'm like, well, fortunately, I'm not so needy that I need $20. It's not worth listening to somebody say, well, you shouldn't have entered so many things. I'm like, it's a DBA army, man. I got to enter the 12 stands, and it's not that many figures. Well, you should have entered only 4. Okay. Let me see your painting. If somebody's going to be the judge, jury, and the executioner, by God, it's going to be me. Yeah, you should do it. You should do a background. It's pretty easy. That's what I'm going to do. Next time I do it, I'm going to go watch. I'm going to find another video and then do it. The craft paint works great, though. It's... Actually, the next time I do it, the problem is I already started it and didn't think about it. I commandeered these. I have a whole set of like they're inexpensive acrylic colors, but I'm going to use that. Hopefully they don't take a long time to dry, but I don't know. The craft paint might actually work better because there's a lot of filler in them. So the filler makes them really flat. So The reason I wouldn't is because my war game table might be on a table in the middle of the room, so it's not much worth the time to strap a bunch of. Yeah. Yeah, maybe, but I plan on filming my stuff just to keep myself on track, you know? I got to run some stuff by myself before I can introduce other people to it. It'll be like, you don't know what you're talking about, you know? And I'm not afraid of saying I don't know something. I can't be the world's expert on everything. I think it's a lot easier to say I'm a lot more comfortable saying I don't know something and not seem like I'm all knowledgeable about something than have to explain to people why I steered them in the wrong direction. Some people just don't care, I guess. They just throw grenades and leave. There's enough people that in the world. There's enough people in the world already doing that shit. That's one thing I always hated about people would come up with comments about, oh, I think you played that rule wrong. And it's people that just read the rule book and haven't been playing the game for very long. It's like, how many games have you played? None. I just looked through the rule book 3 times. So you're a nerd burglar, doesn't have any friends, and you never played the game. Got it. Go back into a hole, man. As a matter of fact, give me that shovel. I'm going to help you make that hole deeper. Now, if it's a big piece of cardboard with a whole background, at least from one side, that would be doable. Yeah, it would be big. I meant this material. I don't mean this size. It would have to be really big. Hobby Lobby sells this stuff. They sell, I've been fortunate. I haven't had to buy any of it, but it sells almost like poster board size, so you need like 2 of them or whatever. I'm just thinking, it wouldn't be so distracting having, the end of the world. It also keeps things from falling off one side too. It's just a thought. I wouldn't make like a pretty background. I'd just be like, spray it like blue or something. Well, for those of you guys that have been listening the last couple of weeks, I did order something that I thought was a really cheap price, and it was. And I think the vendor was legitimate, but I never received it, even though it said I received it. The guy gave me his money back. So, I don't think I'm going to leave him any feedback. I'm not going to leave him any bad feedback. I'm not leaving him any good feedback either. We're just going to call it a wash. I don't know. He used some kind of shipping service that isn't worth a damn, or he didn't really send it to me. But I mean, it's through eBay, so like, who's going to go through that much freaking trouble? I don't know. Who am I to say? How did I source my stuff? Handy, I discovered they had model trees one day. Really made my war games pop out. I haven't bought any from them. The ones that I have are 30 years old, or maybe even more than 30 years old. So I think this weekend I'm going to set up something on the tabletop. I don't know that I'm going to play it, but I'm going to at least set up some stuff with the bricks, with the buildings, with the roads, and just see how it looks if it's missing something. If I'm, with some trees, kind of like the something where I can put kind of the outline of where the trees are and where they aren't, and just see if I'm happy with that. And if not, I'll be like, okay, this needs a little this, that, or the other. And then work on that stuff. I'm just not ready to buy $300 worth of tables. That's about what it'll be. And I'm not buying tables that are a piece of shit that you're going to fight with. Yeah, they're like $100 a piece. So, So I have a 2x4. So let's see what it looks like on a 2x4. But I need a weekend because I don't want to be like, let's do it tonight, and then I'm up till fucking midnight cleaning shit up. Let's see what it needs, kind of thing. Let's get in here with a smaller brush. Gebev. Comrade Gebev. Also selling cool little clearance tables at your local Hobby Lobby recently. Only size on my desk, so really only good for very small scale games. Yeah, I'm actually thinking multiple 24 by 48s. I'm thinking 8 24 by 48s is better than 3 30 by 96s. First of all, it'd be truly 8 foot by 8 foot, and there's other combinations you could do. Because with 3 30 inch by 96s, the only combination you really could do is 90 by 96, or take one away and have 60 by 96. But 30 inches wide is not very useful. That's a bit narrow. So the one I have, my wife ended up getting it from this place that she goes to that sells things that fall off a truck. That's what they call it. They get all these things, like they get like these pallets of stuff that comes in, and people, it's almost like a garage sale of like new things. And sometimes it's junk, and sometimes it's been, people have gone through it. I mean, it's all new stuff, but you know it's all that's people have gone through it. So you never know what you're going to get. But you recently got this collapsible little lifetime table. It's a 24 by 48, and it's split in the middle, so it'll fold, square. I guess 2 foot by 2 foot. So that's pretty easy to, you know. I don't need it to carry a whole lot of weight. It's not like I'm going to stand on it or anything. So I think that might be the way to go. But she ended up getting that for $30. Even at $30, which is a steal, I'd still need to buy $210 more of them, and they'd only have one, and she got it a long time ago. So I'll have to. Well, I'll make up that decision when we get there. Hey, buy one table, and then we got what? What do we got? 4x4? Yeah. Work our way up. I was just looking forward to doing that tank battle, but I don't have a map for that tank battle anyway. So I'm like, I'm gonna set something up this weekend. Um, these these covers that I have. That I got, they're actually really good. Unfortunately, the production quality is good. They're just not. They came to me damaged. That's all. I actually didn't like how thin they were, and now that they're that thin, I'm like, I'm glad they're that thin because I could do what I'm planning on doing with the trees, but we have to iron them and see if we can get some of those. It's not the creases. They got damages on they got damage on the creases. So I don't know if it's gonna bug the shit out of me or not. Hey Rick, that sounds like the exact kind of place my dad likes. A consignment? Well, it is. It's like she gets stuff in, and it's like a pallet of stuff, and it's like from Target or something like that. But it's like one time she had like a whole like I don't know if you can picture like a pallet, and then inside the pallet there's like a box, right? And the box is like cut off, so you got the pallet bottom, and you got this box that's cardboard around all four sides, but it's open, and in there might be like kids' jeans or something like that, and you got to like sift through it, which is it's good if you don't need anything. You know, if you're just like, well, let me see what I can't walk away from. You know, but she's open like at weird times, like at Thursday afternoons and stuff like sometimes Saturday morning. I don't think ever on Sunday morning, but he goes around on one here called Retail Rebel. Your local dump has a swap shed where you can look through stuff like books, DVDs, toys. I actually got some models from there. Another time I got a nice scale church. I hear people that get stuff at Goodwill, and I'm like, I've never seen anything in the Goodwill that I would even be interested in. You know? It's funny because I used to think if somebody says, hey, where'd you get your clothes at Goodwill? I figured Goodwill was stuff that people donated it and they would give it to needy people, right? Like I've donated my clothes, right? I don't give them to somebody else to sell them. I give them to somebody that hopefully gets in needy people's hands, you know, and I'm not going to give them, you know, just stuff that doesn't fit anymore, you know, that kind of stuff. I'm not going to use socks and used underwear kind of stuff, you know, and but yeah, I've never donated anything to Goodwill. I'm like, I'm gonna give it to people who don't have any money to, you know. I mean, that's the whole point, you know. I don't need a receipt to claim it on my taxes. I mean, you know, I don't. I'm not one of them big rollers that itemizes. Dump swap, huh? But this is not how I would go out and painting figures. I wouldn't do like a batch of like whatever this is, 20, and then paint them all. I don't roll that way. I'd do like, I might do like a fire team but I prefer to do it one guy at a time, you know? And that's why I wanted to rebase these guys because now I have a kind of a core that if I want to paint another figure, they go with another 20 or 30 that I already have. It's not like I'm painting them from scratch. You know, even the partisans, I got 10 of them. So I had another one. There's an 11th. There's an 11th person. You know. So Rick, I got an idea from you. I got an idea for you. Let's say I want to do some kind of scenario. Put a scenario in where I want some rules that how one side is going to behave. Any ideas how I can get them to behave? Like, let's say I got everybody playing like one side, and I don't want to specifically make decisions for the one side because the problem is I have access to all the information. Like I can see where everybody is, even though the guys may not see them, and though I may need to roll to spot with them. What should I do with them? I mean, obviously the correct idea is film it all, and then you guys watching get to decide what the guys do. But that could be really time consuming. That would be the right answer, but to keep them just sitting there and just shooting. You're trying to assault a house, and everybody's sitting there just, what are they gonna do? Oh, they're gonna shoot again. Well, it's kind of like a role playing game, except you're not doing funny voices or dressing up. No LARPing and no checking for traps bullshit. Um, it's only role playing because you're making the kind of decisions like when you're playing Dicey Depths, right? Everybody's playing Dicey Depths and you're GMing it. How do you decide what the GM guys are doing? How do you decide what the NPCs are doing? It's not about like I can't handle running the one side, but I'm making decisions based on I have access to all the information. Like I know where everybody is on the board. I mean, I guess I could just talk it out loud with everybody. Like, all right, well, this guy's probably over here, like, like we did with our DBA games. Like, this guy probably wouldn't see anything, so he's probably going to go over here and try to get a better look, so he moves to the other window. I mean, that's probably okay, you know? 'Cause I'm not really one of those people. It's like, I gotta kill the whole party to make myself feel important. Like, I don't, you know? I mean, I don't want to go easy on them, but I don't want to, it's not here just to, destroy people. I already do that in real life. Not really, but there's some people that are into that for specifically for that reason. Like my life sucks, but I'm a deity in this game. I'm like, okay, simmer down, pal. Now, I know exactly what you mean, the game master. You don't want to feel like you have an advantage because you have perfect information. Exactly. In Dicey Depths, my NPCs have basic AI where they roll to determine what they target. Okay, but how do you decide whether or not they're going to move, stay in place, or like move or something like that? Or like, this guy's going to shoot, or maybe he's going to throw a grenade. Create this extra charts and stuff. You have a deck of cards. How am I supposed to shuffle them? You know how you don't paint? I don't shuffle cards. I've watched a couple videos. I'm hopeless. I have a deck of cards with a variety of potential actions they can draw from. I guess I should do a practice game with myself. And then just see what questions I come up with. I totally see this being a game where ideally every person runs a fire team. In a perfect world, really a squad, you have two people running the squad. One guy's assistant squad leader, one guy's a squad leader. That's like, oh, it's really basic. I'm like, okay, well, people play role playing games, and when you play a role playing game, you're running one fucking guy. So now at least you get three chances to fucking die before you're out of the game, or four, or or five, or that kind of thing. You get 5 lives, and their names are. Depending upon what just happened, for example, if one of my bad guys activates, he'll act differently based on how far away the player is, determining whether they might move closer to or engage in melee or take cover and fire from range, or perhaps another special action depending on who they are. Well, I know that if I was playing with, say, somebody like Mitch, we could certainly talk our way out loud what logically the guy would do. I got to play it at least once by myself before he comes in. And then he's got to have the right day off. I ain't playing it on fucking Monday nights. That ain't going to happen. It's white collar weekends. You got to play it on a weekend. Take cover and fire from range, or perhaps another special action depending on who they are. Well, it'll be real easy to play Japanese. They got to go into stabby range. Well, I specifically made the terrain and the figures specifically for one scenario. The problem is I don't want to run that one. It's a little too complicated. It's got a little too many things going on at once. I mean, there's everything from bocage, and it's all a 2x4 board. I'll show it to you. Should be open right here. The book's right here. It's called Purple Heart Hill. It's from Heroes of Omaha and Panzer Lair. And this is the board. And I actually have an orchard that looks like this. I'll have to show this to you. You might get a kick out of it. It looks like crap by today's standards. Meaning it's actually this thick. It's on like blue foam board. So this gully, this ravine is actually cut into it. So it's physically a ravine. And there's this trench that's permanently there, and it's in the ground, and guys can physically fit in there. And then there was a knockout for the woods, and I made it, of course, with these trees that you stick in there and you can pull them out. You can't do that anymore because I cut all the bottoms off those trees off. We don't want to do that. It's basic. But I have this one cut out for these woods. I have this cut out for the woods, the orchard. I have a bunch of little apple trees. That's actually what this is. It's an apple orchard. And the bocage with all the pieces that match all this stuff. And it was just too much. It was too much to do at a convention. I did this almost exactly 20 years ago. Here's the U.S. forces and some optional forces. I got all this stuff for them. Except the bazooka team. I never made the bazooka team. Ran out of time. And I got all this stuff here for the Germans. Oh, except the infantry gun. Well, I got one of those now. Anyhow. I think a 2x4, Those 2x2 squares for a 4x8 table. No, those are 2x2 squares for a 2x4 foot table. No, the squares are actually a foot. The squares are actually a foot. That's what it says, Whole line of questioning has you super intrigued as to what you might be up to. Well, I gotta warn you, it moves really slow. But it's not abstract at all. It moves slow because it's like, okay, pull out a chip. Whose is it? It's Oshlevsky's turn. All right, let's find out where he is. Oh, he's here. Okay, what's he gonna do? You get one action. All right, I'm gonna move over here. So you move a little card, and he can move up this far, and then he's done. Okay, and then you put that chit away, and you move another one. So there's other ways to play the game. There even says you could like pull a chit and the entire squad moves, but then it turns into every other game. The problem is if you move a whole squad, you fire a whole squad, you take 6 or 7 shots, and 7 or 8 of the guys on the other team could be dead, and they never get an action. So that's like, it just turns into every other game. It's like that, So. I am purely interested in a narrative. I mean, there's narratives that have happened unexpectedly in DBA games, and those games are vague as shit. With a specific game, yeah, you're going to see all kinds of stuff happening. A guy go berserk or goes in there and gets into close combat because his machine gun jammed, all kinds of stuff. But if you look at some of like the intro scenarios that they have in the rules, they're really boring. They're like, okay, one squad versus one squad, and even though one side is German and one's Russian, everybody's treated the same, and everybody has rifles only. I'm like, why am I bothering to play this? I'd rather have, army men, Just get plastic army men. But I'm not one that's like, well, let me practice with the rules just using unpainted figures. Because it's like, it's going to suck. And part of it could be blamed on the fact that the table doesn't look good. And I'm sure that's part of the factor, but it's going to be like, well, if I have a bad experience with that, I'm just not going to even finish anything. And that's not what the whole purpose is. The whole purpose is to use these things that we're spending time on to actually do something with them. So probably the easiest thing to do is just come up with some scenario where you got to hunt a sniper down, some guy who's just a pain in the ass, or you got to rescue somebody. You got to do like a rescue, like a squad, and you're fighting. You obviously have to outnumber whoever it is on the defense. Think it's cool that you care about the distinction you made decisions over. Well, when you play Americans, you should have to play them differently than if you're playing Germans. You should have to play them differently if you're playing Russians. And it's the whole point. Not just they look different, or they have different skill things, or they have different weapons. I mean, you got to be able to play them differently. And one of the things is you can't control. Combat has a lot of uncontrollables and a lot of random stuff that happens. And the other guy should have to deal with that stuff too. And stuff doesn't always go your way. And there's a few things you can control by stacking your hand, and that is how you manage your junior leaders. But, if they catch a bullet, you're going to have some problems trying to achieve your objectives. I always say I always like a game when it involves grenades. It's all about grenades and like what happens if you have a game where grenades don't deviate or they just go too far away. Like grenades in this game, I think go about a foot, because it's in scale with the figures. So they go relatively far and they can deviate, and you want to toss it over here and it lands over here, and that's when the party starts, because it's just entertaining to see what happens. Timing is everything. That's the name of the game. But there's too many games that are like, oh, it's a skirmish game. Well, what is it? Oh, it's made for a platoon on each side. And that's fine, right? But each player shouldn't be running a platoon, because then it's not a skirmish game. And the first game that made me see that is DBA, because DBA is like you're basically a general, or you are the king of a country and you brought the army with you. And that's the kind of decisions you're making. You're not making this decision of like, all right, let's make sure that we, within this group of 50 guys, we give up this one flank. You're not making those decisions. You're making the decisions that are like, okay, we want these guys kind of over here, and we want these guys kind of over here, and doing that thing. And that's the whole thing. If you're moving individual people, you need to be at an assistant squad leader level. If you're moving your fire team, that's what it is. Even if you're moving a platoon, you're worried about where your squads are, but you're not worried about individual people. You can't be. You're not making that kind of decision. You need to be making lieutenant type decisions. So, if moving individual figures is important to you, which it is to me, then you can't have people command really large forces. Ideally, it's like if you're running a vehicle, you're running a vehicle, So it's personal when it freaking dies. And it's important where your turret is rotated and how fast you can, rotate your turret. Or, maybe you don't want to do something because it's going to take you a long time to get your turret rotated. Or like you can't reload in time, so put it into gear and run the guy over, That's the movie moments that I want to see. I want to see people run over. You don't see that in other games. You don't see, people being run over in games. If you have a battlefield that it's an 8-foot battlefield, 8 by 8 foot battlefield, that translates in almost 200 meters by 200 meters. That sounds pretty big. That's point blank range for vehicles, even in the Second World War, even more so now. In the Second World War, 200 meters is point blank range. You know, vehicles shouldn't be that close, unless you're like in Stalingrad and you're going taking that factory and you're bringing that Stug in the factory with you to do direct fire support. Vehicles vehicles shouldn't be that close to enemy infantry because they got lots of blind spots and that kind of stuff, and they can't react properly. So let's just see what happens. So one of the coolest scenarios is, I have this scenario for one of the curse books. I gotta show you. I gotta show you this scenario. This is pretty freaking cool. And I have just a vehicle for it too. I think there's only one vehicle in it at all. It's in the first cursed book, which the first cursed book is basically it's called Großdeutschland Cursed, and it's basically the Germans on the offense, and then it stalls. And then the second book one I have is basically a counterattack by the Soviets. But in this Großdeutschland Cursed, there is a scenario in here called Crippled Tiger. And I would say this is probably a really good scenario to do right off the bat, except that I gotta paint a bunch of stuff that I don't have painted already. But basically, what you have is you have this board, and it's a 2x4 board. Okay. Each one of these squares is supposed to be a foot. It seems a little cramped, but hey, that's what the rules say. Okay. Got some optional wrecks in here. You got a ravine running through the middle. Bam, tiger's right in the middle of it. Got a hill. It's kind of almost like in a little valley. Light woods. So some woods, a ravine with a tiger stuck in it. This action represents a recovery operation for a disabled tank, a scene repeated numerous times by both sides as the attrition of heavy combat put on a high premium on repairing every vehicle possible. German orders? Well, you should probably read the Soviet orders first. Destroy the Tiger or capture, kill, or force off the board all the German soldiers. German orders: avoid Soviet victory conditions. So the Tiger's immobilized. Prior to the setup, the German player rolls a d6 to determine the cause. 1 or 2, the left track is damaged. 3 or 4, the right track is damaged. 5 or 6, the engine is damaged. So what the forces consist of is a Tiger 1. In this scenario, it could really be anything. I was going to use an elephant, or I'm sorry, a Ferdinand, because I have one that was already painted. You have a salvage crew that basically has a crew leader and 5 tank mechanics in a truck. Okay, and these are not high quality troops. They're just rear guard dudes. So they all have rifles except the crew leader, who's got a pistol. And then part of the Tiger tank crew. The Tiger tank crew is the tank commander, radio operator, and driver. So only 3 of the 5 guys showing up in a Kubelwagen. Okay? And the Soviets have a recon squad, basically equipped with half of them, recon squad of 6, 7, 8, 9 folks, half of them with submachine guns and half of them with rifles, and a headquarters of 2 guys. And basically they come on the board. The Soviets come in on this edge, and the Germans come in here. And these guys are trying to eliminate these crew, and these guys are trying to bring the Tiger back. The salvage crew must be placed adjacent to the area of the Tiger that requires repair. The Soviet player is not informed of the damage to the Tiger until the salvage crew is spotted. Salvage crew truck must be placed within 6 inches of the Tiger and may not be in the ravine. The salvage crew may not move until Soviet units are spotted or until they're fired upon. The ravine is impassable for wheeled vehicles. Duh. The Soviet vehicle has 2 options for achieving victory. It's not necessary to select the victory method if either criteria is fulfilled at the end of the turn. If either criteria is fulfilled at the end of the turn 8, the Soviet player wins. So it's a pretty straightforward scenario, Might be good to try, but that means I got to paint some Soviets. I got to paint some Germans too. You know, they can have a variable attachment of a motorized infantry squad. I got them. I got them already painted. I got them already painted now without painting these guys. But the Soviets can also get a flamethrower team. Whoops. And so anyhow, might be something to work towards. But the only reason I'm kind of pushing towards a pre-made scenario just to see, because it's supposedly they're balanced. Like somebody's play tested the thing before. I would hope. So it's not just me coming up with something. But I guess ultimately it doesn't really matter. All right, I'll be right back. Let me go get a beverage. There was a other set of scenarios that this other company makes, that they also make their own skirmish rule set that's really anal retentive. I used to have the set of rules, and I sold them. I gave them to Noble Knight. But they also have quite a few sets of scenarios. And a couple of years ago, I actually picked one up because it was called Solitaire Soldiers, and it's basically like a mini campaign. It's a mini campaign of like an American squad that goes and from landing at Normandy all the way through. And it's all fictitious. But it literally gives you the characters, like their background information. This is so and so, and this is whatever, and this is what he does, and this is what he did, and this is what he. So almost like a role playing game, but you don't do any role playing. Just kind of background information. And you don't know what these scenarios look like until you buy them, and they're about $15, so they're not super cheap. And I wasn't happy with this product because, like, right off the bat, the squad leader has the BAR. And if you know anything about an American squad, a squad leader would never carry a BAR. Well, they would if, like say you're stuck behind enemy lines or whatever, and you're, I don't know, you lose your weapon, and the only weapon there is a BAR. You'd pick that up. But I mean, that would be a terrible weapon for a squad leader. That'd be like the last. That'd be the last weapon the squad leader would have, other than like a 30 cal machine gun. He's going to use an M1 carbine, uh, Thompson, just a regular Garand would be just fine, but just something that he's got to spend not much time like suppressing and stuff. But anyhow, so that was this guy's shtick. That was his story, as he was the squad leader and he had a BAR. Nobody's going to tell him what to do. I'm like, okay, right off the bat, it's like, all right, so okay, it's already sounding hokey. You didn't sell me on it, you know. As I look at these professional scenarios, these quote unquote professional scenarios, I just figure maybe they have access to some information that I don't have. You know, maybe they got a hold of something that I didn't know. You know, and they're going to make these really cool scenarios, and that's going to bring me to something that I actually found this week that was really really interesting, and it's probably going to take me into a rabbit hole, but I don't mind. I got my miner's hat ready with a little flashlight. Um, Let me finish paying this guy, and then I'll show you what it is, because I've got my phone here, so I should be able to find it on my phone. But there's this guy that I know in real life. He's not a gamer, but he was looking at some of the photos that I that that had of my stuff, and he's like, "Hey, you should do a vehicle that my grandfather was in the Second World War, and it was a tank destroyer." I know I've talked to him a little bit about it before in the past. It just reminded me that he made a comment about it this week, and he was in a tank destroyer. This is what I remember from what he told me before. He was an M10 tank destroyer in Italy, and he was American, and his grandfather was. And I don't remember what tank destroyer battalion he was in. Um, so I asked him recently. I said, "Hey, tell me what unit he's in, and maybe I'll paint some M10s, because I got some M10. My M10s are on my to-do list. If I could find some that are like affordable. Actually, the Armor Fast ones are affordable. They just have no interior." And I'm like, you kind of need an interior in an M10, because there's a lot of stuff going on there. I mean, you've got, not only do you have the breech of the cannon, which on some versions of the Armor Fast one it doesn't come, but you've got racks on the back where the ready rack is for the ammunition. It's kind of like, and it's all exposed, like you can see all that stuff. So I've been looking for like different options of being able to get them, and there's some people that make them 3D printed that look horrible. Like, I'm not going to waste my time doing that. And I also don't want to spend $30 each, because I need four of them for this scenario. But I told them, hey, they're on my to-do list. You know, I'll get to them at some point. So I asked him what unit his grandfather was. Haven't heard back from him. So I decided to go down the old internet rabbit hole, and there's a website. This is really incredible, and there's probably other stuff like this. And this is why I'm not interested in fantasy or science fiction, because there's so much real stuff that happened that people wrote down that we don't know about, that is just waiting there to be discovered. And fuck this. This can wait. This is a good story. See if I can find this. Because I didn't go super deep, but man, I found a treasure trove of stuff. This picture: Tony opens first scenario, squad leader has a BR, Tony shuts his book, I'm out. Exactly. If it happens throughout it's just like, come on, who you fooling? I'm not 8 years old anymore, you know? I mean, it could happen, but no, he's not going to. I mean, that thing's heavy as shit, man. You know? Okay. So I went and I changed my password on my phone because it was too freaking long to begin with. All right. And I still haven't reminded myself that I've changed it. Okay. So U.S. tank destroyer battalion in Italy. Let's see if I can find this. Because sometimes things finding out on your phone aren't as easy to find as something else. List of United States tank destroyer units. Okay, there's no information there. Okay, if you go to tankdestroyers.net, okay, and you can see there's a little tank destroyer symbol. For those of you guys that don't know, I'm always harping on the U.S. tank units have shit symbols, and they do. No disrespect to our fighting men and women. It just, they don't pick their symbols. But U.S. Armored Division being that triangle is just ridiculous. And they're all the same, except one numeral's different. Not like that. The tank destroyers have a really cool symbol, and that's this little cat crunching on on some tracks. Super cool unit. So if you go over here to tankdestroyer.net, okay, and I'm just kind of looked at them, landed in Pestrum, Italy, whatever, participated in drive up the time. So I look at, okay, let's go to 645th Tank Destroyer. Yeah, this is the little symbol. Super cool symbol. Should have gotten whoever designed that to do all the armor divisions. Tells you when it was activated, where it was activated, battalion arrived in Algeria, withdrawn from training. Okay, but the stuff you would probably, figure out. Combat equipment, they have M10s. They got changed to M36s in February 1945. The commanding officers, right? Campaign credits, sure. And this is just for one of the tank destroyer battalions. This is where it gets interesting. Battle reports. Except where noted, the following documents are from the Combined Arms Research Library of the Command and General Staff College, Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, the Dwight D. Eisenhower Presidential Library Museum, and Boyhood Home, Abilene, Kansas, and courtesy of the Tank Destroyer Association by L. Guild, historian. And it basically tells you September 9th through 30th, 1943, 4 pages. So let's say, for instance, I want to see, includes casualty list, report on enemy armor, report on M10 losses. So let's find out about enemy armor, okay? Just once. Now here's the only catch. This is a copy of stuff that's been typed, and sometimes it's really blurry, okay? But there's some juicy shit in here. Now I don't know if necessarily this one is juicy. Yeah, and unfortunately, some of it is just really hard to read. Area of operation, approach positions, enemy armor operated in the general area, bounded by 85 something, 2.5 grid line on the south and on the east by the whatever. Enemy armor came down as far as the southern edge of factory on 16th of September 1944. There were 2 main approaches, second round. Okay, I'm scanning here. Infantry and armor. In all reported cases, infantry was with the tanks. The infantry would often ride on Mark 6s, that's Tiger 1s, and mortar squads were seen on Mark 4s and 3s. However, the infantry never dismounted further south than whatever grid line. The only time the tanks were seen to advance in front of the infantry was when the infantry couldn't get through a point. Well, that makes sense. You don't lead with freaking tanks. Had the Mark IVs advanced and blast out that point in short then. Yeah, see, this isn't a good... But there's all kinds... I came across one of them that was like... Let's see if we can get one that... There's all kinds of... Radio, wire communication. Let's go to the 894th. I believe the 894th is the one that I actually clicked on. Naples, Foggia, right? Any tank defensive angio, beachhead. Come on. Anyways, there's all kinds of stuff on here. Units. Battalion 600. 601st. Photo gallery. History campaigns, roster. Claim report combat time. Yeah, this is a basically an account where they're in North Africa. About 4:30 a.m. March 23rd, Lieutenant Joe Gioia of the tank destroyer spotted two Krauts on a motorcycle. When the Huns approached, they asked, "Panzer, Panzer?" "Hell no," yelled the officer. "He killed one of the Germans, captured the other." Then he alerted the Americans by radios by his vehicle. Division G2 had no information that Hun armor was anywhere in the vicinity, while as a matter of fact, the entire 10th Panzer Division was moving in for a smash. The attack came at dawn with some 85 German Mark IVs and 6s rolling down in platoon waves towards the displaced half tracks. The Krauts maneuvered their vehicles in column lefts and column rights in such fashion that a Mark 6 on one corner supported a Mark 6 on the other, and a deadly crossfire. The same procedure was followed with the Mark 6s. Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff in here. In France, the recons had pulled up to a hill for a little breather when a column of enemy vehicles started moving out from a nearby town in an escape effort. Ezel, forgetting the vacation, knocked off the first three cars with razzle-dazzle fire from a 50 caliber on a scout car. Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff in here that's like, really interesting. Back at Besançon, the destroyers of Company A gave a demonstration in fort busting. So they encountered some kind of a fort. Apparently, they use tank destroyers a lot for busting bunkers and stuff like that. Like, okay, you can't find any enemy armor. Like, okay, what do we do? I don't know. There's something over here that's giving us trouble. Let's knock it down. Back at Besançon, the destroyers of Company A gave demonstration in fort busting that must have made King Arthur turn over in his grave. Big doors on the fort, which sheltered a number of Krauts, couldn't be knocked down, so the tank destroyers were called, and a few rounds later, the doors lay smashed under the point blank fire, opening the way for doughboys to rush in across the moat and get at the Germans. Then it was all over. Destroyers in that action were manned by Sergeant Gallant, Tech 4 Joe Domosley, Sergeant Max Andrus, Private First Class Robert Hyde, Private First Class Arthur Joyce, Sergeant Dale Davis, Tech 5 Ed Brennett, Tech 5 Robert Sichard, Tech 4 Holstein, and Private Joe McGowan. Besançon also held another high point for the company when one of its platoons caught a Kraut convoy on the northwest side of town, and with some neat point blank firing, erased 27 vehicles and dozens of their occupants. "Our fire swept that road like a broom," was the way one man put it. Fast action. Sergeant Dante Capiello and his crew didn't exactly have a field day like that, but they did demonstrate the proper way to play hide and seek with a Kraut tank dug in on a hillside as a glorified pillbox. The Kraut was covering a main road, and to the approach in his view was an innovation to trouble, real trouble, invitation to trouble. So Capiello maneuvered his vehicle in such a fashion as to pull up around a corner hidden from the German's view. Then, quick like the flash of an adder's tongue, the sergeant threw his tank destroyer around the corner and knocked off the Hun before the latter realized the time of day. Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff in here, like the Huns were pedaling their bikes into town for a rest, unaware the Americans were there. Wow. There's all kinds of shit in there, man. I really need to dig in there. There's probably some good shit there. And there's got to be stuff like that on in all other kind of units, you know? Um, could be worse. I don't have a large abundance of vehicles in my scale from kits, so I'm having to buy a resin kit that costs like $30 for a single one compared to kits. At least it's pricey. Yeah, well, it's only an issue because I saw this scenario. It had freaking four tank destroyers in it. But anyways, I gotta dig deep in there. There's probably some, at least inspiration for some stuff, you know. And yes, some of those reports could be doctored up, okay. But there's a little bit of make believe in just about any kind of a report. But at least you'd think it'd have something substance to fall back on, you know. I bet there are some strange stories in there. I'm gonna try to find some. I'm gonna kind of I'm gonna look into that. Strange stories with Tony. So speaking of strange stories, I really wish I could do this, and I don't really know how to go about this. That's not going to cause a ton of trouble for myself. And I've talked about this before. Let me see if I can find this. Oh, I know I can find it. The question is, where is it? Okay, here it is. So, 30 years ago, about 30 years ago, close to, yeah, 30 years ago, when I was working part time at a hobby store, we had this guy that came up, and he was a history guy. He was a history, I think he was a history student. I don't think he was a history professor. He was like a history student. And let's see if I can finish this damn Soviet bastard. He was studying history, and he had written this book of these short stories, historical fiction, and he wanted to know if we were interested in buying some books from him and putting them up for sale. And it's a softback book, and I'll show it to you right now. And you can actually find it on Amazon. Last time I checked, it was excruciatingly expensive. Not that anybody's going to buy this for $200, but and it's called Madness Without End: Tales of Horror from the Russian Wilderness. It's one of the few books I've actually read all the way through. But it has his own artwork, which is not great or anything, but and it's historical fiction, and it's a bunch of short stories. And it's tales of horror. Yeah, there's no vampires or anything like that. It is just, there's how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There's 12 stories in here. He's got his own little Eastern Front map in case you wanted to know where the Eastern Front was. But pretty gory stuff, if I remember correctly. And I really wish I could read this to you guys. Unfortunately, it's like a first printing, and I've only read this one time, and I'm really good with books. But this was by a small press here in the town that I live in, which is no longer in business. So I don't know if I could actually read this online or not. And I don't want to get into a situation. The author passed away. He's was a pervasive smoker. He died really, really young, like maybe in his late 40s, early 50s, maybe. There's probably scenarios or ideas for the stuff in there. I remember really liking that. He actually made a second one that I also picked up. It's not as good as that one. That one's really, really good. And he actually published a couple of books that I also have through Military Book Club. Remember that thing? Remember that big con game? That wasn't a con game. I just you sign up for the membership, and it's like, there's nothing else I want. When they, I want to charge my membership. They keep charging you. I don't know. I got a lot of stuff from Military Book Club in the early, I guess, 2000s or whatever. But I don't know how it would go. I would love to just sit there and, I thought the guy was a pretty good, author, but you could tell he was like a war gamer. It has stuff in there that a regular author wouldn't put in there. I mean, he talks in there about how they mix the camouflage scheme on their paints, and they're talking about Panther this number and this other Panther came up and this one's Sometimes about half the stories are from the German viewpoint, half of them from the Russian viewpoint, and they have little wrinkles in there where you could like picture what the vehicle actually looks like and stuff like that. And I don't know. Wouldn't mind reading that to you guys, but I don't know how it would even go. I don't think it's even worth messing with. I probably could do it. I would just have to demonetize the video. You know, I don't get into that legal crap. As soon as I hear the word legal, I'm like, I'm out. I'm not interested in that. But it was kind of a cool. It made me think about that, about the little individual actions. But as always, a lot of those actions they leave a lot left to be done. Like you don't know what the terrain looks like, or but there's probably some interesting stories in there for sure, that are more accurate, at least in the action report, or at least in the unit history, than you might find somewhere else. At least it's a primary document, right? Uh huh. Not my first rodeo. I heard him whisper in Russian, "Catch me, I'm falling." Okay, that's it. That's all we're gonna do. Oh man, I really cut off some of the edge of this guy. I tapered it down. Well, this guy's a wounded mortar commander. He's got his arm in a sling. Yeah, every time you pull him up, you got to start wounded. No, not that. He's not that wounded. Not that kind of wounded. Okay, that's Baranov. I've been considering some books that showcase paint schemes, though, since that would be very some for some models. Yeah, the I love books, but I'll be honest with you. When I look for a paint scheme, I just go straight to the internet. Now, you got to be careful because there's a lot of misinformation, but there's a lot of good information too. Look at the picture and don't go by what people say it's a picture of. There's a lot of really ignorant helpers out there. there's a lot of ignorant helpers. I don't feel like finishing the Russians all the way, so I'm going to go ahead and keep basing the Germans. You guys did a decent job of keeping me awake. I was like, I'm gonna give this until 9 and see if anybody shows up, because like yesterday it was like a struggle. It was a real struggle, and I need to get this done. Not for any battle or anything. I want to get it done so we can get this project complete. This is I guess the master sergeant equivalent in the German platoon. Who's this clown? Stefan. As a last name. We don't have first names. My French partisans have first names only. Yeah, the first place I go and check, I check the internet pictures. I Google image search. Google image search is your friend. But you kind of have to know what you're looking for. You can't just like arbitrarily like do a, show me this, you don't know what you don't know what the right answer looks like. That's why I just really dislike really abstract math, like algebra 2. Because like regular algebra, you're trying to figure out what the answer to an equation is, but you kind of have a clue about what it is. You don't just get, well, it's negative 74.37, it's like, or negative 0.34. I'm like, no, it's not going to be that. So if you're working with really abstract stuff, it's really kind of hard to kind of double check to make sure that you're on the right track. And if you don't know if you're just pulling up pictures of unknown subject matter, yeah, you can get dissuaded by the wrong information. And there's a lot of incorrect stuff on there. And I think in the future it's going to get worse because there's a lot of AI bullshit, like make believe stuff. I guess you could make a backstory for all these guys. Like, hey, make me a backstory for this guy. He's from this town in Bavaria, and and his dad was a butcher or something like that. And it'll write a whole background thing for this guy. But that's not really important in the game. I'm creative, but I'm not a creative writer. I'm not interested in that kind of stuff. I'm a painter, damn it. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe between now and tomorrow night, before I do it again, I'll look up one of those tank destroyer stories and see if I can find something really cool and unique to share with you guys. Yeah, but lots of them I would hear. I kind of glanced at some of the stories and they were like, "Oh, there's no tanks. What do we do?" So they put the they put the tank destroyers on an incline and use them as artillery. Like, well, they would have to. I don't think the tank destroyers would have that much high explosive. And armor piercing doesn't work for artillery. I mean, unless you get a direct hit on on something. You don't do off board indirect fire with armor piercing rounds. The same way you don't use a bazooka to pick off individual guys in the field. Hey, there's these guys in the open. Fire the bazooka at them. And it doesn't really work that way. I'm going to be like, Tony, did this Kampfwagen really have two ball turrets on either side of the picture depicts? Exactly. Can't have five people named Hans. That's right. That's right. All the surnames have to be unique. I don't care that Schmidt is an extremely common German last name. There's only going to be one Schmidt, damn it. You know? Because then the next thing you know is you've got, somebody Schmidt and Frankie Schmidt and this other guy Schmidt and Heinrich Schmidt. And I'm like, next thing you know, these guys have, this tag on their on the back of their soldier. It looks like the names of some U.S. destroyers, and I really just as a naval war gamer. First, I absolutely hate the names where they have the name. What's the name of the ship? It's the Arthur L. Lester Jr. I'm like, I know he's a war hero or everything. You should have just called it the Lester. Oh, well, we got to get his whole name in there with the. That's just exhausting. That's just exhausting. Just like, I've never had to find a lawyer, but, there's a lawyer, like, you used to have a whole family of lawyers, right? And they're the Williams, right? And there's six of them that work there. Why don't they, and they're the only ones that work there. Why don't they just call it Williams Law Firm? No, it's Williams, 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 and Williams. I'm like, it's all the same fucking name, jackass, And what difference does it make? Oh, I'm the first Williams measured. It's all the same freaking name, It's like name rants. What's Wednesday name rants? Hey, what can I say in particular? Yeah, I can't have five people named Hans. There can only be one Pierre. Do I have a Pierre yet? If not, I will. I will shortly. There can be only one Suzanne. What's her name? I don't think Suzanne's the one I have. What's this lady? What's the lady I have painted? Paulette. There can be only one Paulette, and she has a Panzerfaust and a pistol. Panzerfaust Paulette. I did that on purpose, so I can have a P name. Oh, I have two. I have two ladies. This one dresses like a dude. I don't know if this was a dude, but I'm like, that could be a lady. I'm like, we made it a lady. Annette and Paulette. Why did my? Oh man, you know what? I didn't change the. I didn't change the chat to live chat. You guys might have been saying really interesting stuff. I didn't know people name figures. I don't do that. I have to because I have to give them some kind of an ID. Well, first of all, I like it because they're going to build up a reputation whether they want to or not. And the way you figure out who's next is you put their name on the chit and you draw the chit, and that's who it is. And I want it on the top of the figure somewhere, so you're not like, okay, it's Schmidt's turn. Well, which is Schmidt? Is it him? No, it's not that one. Is it this guy? No. Is it this one? No. Is it this guy? No. And then every time you pick him up, you're putting him down. It ends up turning into the you're playing the guess who game. Why did my Google Home light up when I said jackass? Because that's what your Google refers to as you. Maybe that's what you refer to as jackass. Okay, let me go back and see what I missed here. These descriptors are intense. Okay, that might be the only thing I missed. I don't remember it. There may be a way, like, always put live chat on. If people want to say, language, let them put the language on there. I'm pro cussing as long as you're not cussing at someone, and as long as every sentence doesn't have that in it, it's like I got one guy at work that he can't say a single sentence without using the F word in it. So it's like basically typing in caps all the time. You're basically emphasizing every single sentence. You can never emphasize anything else because everything is already, if everything is already turned up to 11, how do you really know that something is being emphasized if you're using all the nuclear weapons all the time, all the nuclear words. He uses the F bomb for adjective, noun, adverb. I don't know. I'm gonna stop there. I'm gonna have flashbacks of diagramming sentences in 8th grade. Have flashbacks of that teacher, and she always would say, I can't remember what I now remember what her name is. She was the one that always would say, da, 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 or what have you. Da, 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 or when when you're 13 years old or 10 years old or 12 years old and you hear or what have you, that's like, what the F is this? You know? What is that? And then I hear these kids, oh, they don't have to diagram sentences anymore or write in cursive. I'm like, that's it. I'm going back to school. I had to write in cursive. I hated writing in cursive. I have neat handwriting, but not in cursive. I don't like seeing anybody else writing in cursive. It's ugly. Then another low flying aircraft. Get out the 20. We must be in a flight path one time. Over here at this house. You crash a plane in my house and hurt somebody in my family, they're not going to find you alive, Mr. Pilot. Just saying, there's my disclaimer. I've almost considered just popping these guys off and just starting from scratch. Because it probably would have been quicker than to try to get in all the nooks and crannies on the figure. Cranny sounds like angry grandmother, grandmothers. Oh, grandmother. Drink. Angry grandmothers. Crabby grannies. Crannies. Crabby grannies. You want to go out to you want to go out to dinner with your significant other and nobody's there to watch your kids? Call Crabby Grannies. They'll come in and give your kids help. A gaggle of crannies. That's right. I'll send out a bingo of crannies. You know, I can see playing bingo, but I can't see playing a game like bingo or poker or anything not for money. And it doesn't have to be big money. Don't get me wrong. It could be, nickel dime quarter. You know, um, I don't know how many cruises I've been on. 12, 15, something like that. Never gambled once. Like $50 Annies? Are you out of your mind? Are you out of your freaking mind? Well, that's for rich people. Sorry, man. I wouldn't do that. That's too stressful, man. I play games for free, but I wouldn't want to play, like poker for nothing. We had a group of guys that would get together several years ago. I don't know, probably 10 years ago, maybe even 15 years ago, and it's probably more like 15 years ago. Once a month, and everybody would go in with $20. That's it. Who cares if you lose $20? You're going to lose it in 3 or 4 hours. It's not like one hand and it's over, So, the cranny. Look out for the cranny. Rick, you're probably not old enough to remember this, but there used to be a thing in the 70s. Every decade has stuff like what I'm about to describe to you. And I don't know what the 1980s version of it is, but this was definitely the 1970s because I remember I remember seeing them in Alabama when we used to live in Alabama. And it's not an Alabama thing. They have them everywhere. But they had these face, just like what was it, 2000 in the 2000s or maybe in the 90s, people had the what was that fish that would talk on the wall? I never saw one of them, but I knew that it was this big thing about the some trout you would do something to and it would like sing to you. Just some joke ornament type thing like that. Well, it was kind of like that before, except it was these faces, and these were like hillbilly faces. I'm gonna pull you up with what the thing is here. I bet I could find it in no time. And you got to be at least my age to remember these things. I'm a Google search meister. So I'm gonna put faces on wall, and they had a little string, and you'd pull on them, and they would make this cackle, and they would be scary to maybe somebody who was like a young child, you know. But I'm not scared of anything that's made of plastic, and you can just knock off the damn wall, you know. Faces on wall that laugh. Okay. And well, I'm actually might be more difficult to find than I thought. Um, and there's a name for them. I found them one time and like, oh, I didn't know they were named. Because I'm like 8 years old or something like that. Decor. They were like it was like a redneck woman. I mean, like the hillbilliest, redneckest. I mean, they wouldn't even be worthy of being from Nebraska. This is like, inbred West Virginia thing. Sorry if you're from West Virginia, but you know what these people look like. Um, anyways, they'd have like a little tie or like a bolo tie or something like that, and you'd pull on them and you know, I still see those around. None of them work. Yeah, well, you know what I'm talking about. It was like circa 1978 they had those things. So they actually have a name. They have a name. I don't know what the name is, but they have a name. Cackle like that. Yeah, none of them work. I guess they were battery powered or something like that. You know what else was used to be really big in the 1970s? I mean, not. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of things that were big in the 1970s, like the rooms that had the 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 paneling on them, all that wood and that brown ass paneling and everything, and was cuckoo clocks. People would have cuckoo clocks. Like nobody has a cuckoo clock anymore. I mean, we didn't have a cuckoo clock, but as a kid, you go to somewhere, oh, they have a cuckoo clock. It's like, woo. Now it's like, huh? Doesn't exist. Just friggin' died. All right, this is the fine brush one, right? Okay. This is Jurgensen. So a German with a Swedish type last name. Hmm. It's an Inzerloper. What else was big in the 1970s? Shows always had, like shows you'd watch as a kid. They would always have like a common theme. They always had quicksand. There was always quicksand then. Whether it was Lost in Space, well, that was even earlier than that. I guess that was 60s. I guess 60s and 70s. Yeah, maybe it was just kind of started petering out in the 70s. Kids who shows what back there you watch always had quicksand. Gilligan's Island had fucking quicksand. Lost in Space had quicksand. You just walking around, what the fuck? I mean, when you're a kid, you think, oh man, I got to be careful. I could encounter quicksand any moment. You know what? Yeah, you could probably see some of those faces if you go to an estate sale. But estate sales are really, really sad. I've been to, I think, three ever. And I don't think I'm going to go to another one because it's just really disappointing to see all the bullshit. I guess I could be. No, I'm very specific. My bullshit's not all over the place. These people just collect all kinds of stuff that has no value to anybody but them. And then they pass on, and like their family doesn't want it. And I'd hope that my stuff doesn't end up at a friggin' estate sale, you know. But like salt and pepper shakers. I went to this one, and they had. I mean, how many salt and pepper shakers do you need? Well, I'll tell you what. You don't need more than 30 of them. Okay, that's anybody in their right mind would say. When you get to 30 salt and pepper shakers, and I'm talking about sets. I'm not talking 15 salt ones and 15 pepper ones. I mean, 30 complete freaking sets. You don't need more. Children of the 70s growing up thinking they'd be involved in quicksand scenarios much more often. Yep. Yeah, I always say I'm from the 80s because the 80s I remember really well, but I was born in the 70s, but the 70s were over when I turned 9. So, or, 9.5. But there's stuff, when you're really young, there's stuff that you think is really cool. And then you grow up and you see it again, and you're like, what the fuck was I thinking? And I'm like, I mean, I'm a kid, okay? So it's like, okay, it's a kid thought it was cool. It's not, it's pretty lame. But the adults that put that stuff together, they were on the drugs. They're on them 70s drugs. In the 70s, what I was really into was dinosaurs. I was really into it. I would have gotten so excited if anything half as good as Jurassic Park would have come out back then. No, we didn't have stuff like that. We had like freaking iguanas that had like a stuck on thing on them for like the journey to the center of the earth. Or we had freaking Land of the Lost with this cheesy ass freaking claymation stupid dinosaur type things and the damn slee stacks and the 8-man. Just dumb shit, Just like who would have come up with this kind of stuff? Yeah, people on drugs. Yeah, anything was even remotely dinosaurish, I was like all over because that was like the very first thing I was really into. What can we do to make sure our stuff doesn't end up in an estate sale? Do the Egyptian thing and make sure it gets buried with you and take it to the afterlife. If I had a kid interested, it'd be easy, or even a nephew or niece. Well, your sister's got to get busy. Yeah, you gotta, somebody shows up at your place and they're gonna be like, what the fuck? I mean, they're gonna be like, this guy just didn't know how to spell stop, you know? Yeah, they're just gonna be like, can I just like buy this house and we'll just put up a game store here and there'll just be one of everything, you know? Gently used, you know? But your stuff, I'm not going to give you any crap because your stuff is impressive because it's organized. And that is, you are not a typical gamer. Typical gamers are just a disaster. They're like pig pen that roll dice. It's just, yeah, you're not a typical gamer. And you know that. You know that. You don't even have any pets, do you? I don't think you have any pets, which is, there's a special place for those of us that have no pets. We're an elite group, people that don't own pets. I think there's only about like 12 of us on the entire planet. And it's been my experience that the more distractions you have, the more distractions you collect. Like you think, okay, who should have four dogs? Okay, some girl that lives by herself, right, and needs like protection or has nothing better to do, or is like bored. Oh no, the four dogs are the ones that have like eight kids. I'm like, gee whiz, man, they don't need any more stuff. I grew up with some elderly grandmothers that spoke no English. They lived with us, and we never were able to travel because we always had to be mindful of somebody taking care of them. So I'm already predisposed, and I didn't grow up with any pets. So I'm already predisposed to like, I don't want anything that's like, well, we can't go on this trip because, we got to feed Fifi. Yeah, you need to tell your sister to get busy, or be a foster parent, or adopt a kid. I don't know. I mean, I can't imagine adopting somebody that's already has habits. Like if you get if you get a kid and they're really little, where you basically can mold them. But if you got somebody that already has nurture issues and you have to try to undo that stuff, yeah, I'm not your person. I'm not the person for that. I know some people take that as a challenge, but my work's challenging enough. I don't need that when I get home. Or have some kid like mouth off to you. It's like, you get shivers thinking about use the N word, some nerd burglar at my estate sale touching my stuff with their Cheeto fingers. Yeah, I've actually seen people play a game and they had pizza fingers. And like, I'm like, I'm not bringing my game here. So just so you know, if I ever do a game here, if I ever do a game of this with people, it'll be here. I'm not going to travel with this. And there's no drinks on the table. There's absolutely no drinks on the table. And yeah, we're probably going to have to wash up because I don't need that shit in my life. I don't do this to get stressed. This isn't pay enough to that kind of stuff. You know, Cheeto fingers. Hey, I see you got some drinks here. Yeah, we have to have them over here on this table. You got anything for snacks? Yes, we got IVs. You have IVs for snacks, and we're gonna put you on this table and roll you around, and I'll tell you what figures to. Where do you want to move this guy? You want to move this guy here? A little more? A little more? Is that good? Move him back? Okay. Yeah. Just sit there and stay on your IV or whatever. I'm hoping I can make a scene at the last game convention. And by making a scene is if I'm going to encounter that guy. I know I've told you this scenario where this guy went and grabbed. It's not even my figures. This guy grabbed these 28 millimeter. I know who he is. I was watching him last convention. This was the one before that. He grabbed these 28 millimeter figures and said, "Hey, can I move them over here?" And he said, "Yeah, I can." He measured the distance. And he just went and grabbed them and tossed them like that. If that happens again, I'm going to say something to somebody. And I'm probably going to go out of my way to be a fucking ass because that guy deserves it. I'm just at that age where it's like nobody's ever stood up for you to you in this. I'm like, I'm going to be that person. I'm going to be that person that's going to stand up to people who've never been stood up, have never had somebody stand up to them before. I love the idea of a pregame wash up. That way, no one gets singled out either for being the unclean one. Well, it's my house. I just don't invite you. How come I'm not being invited to your house? What's your first guess? The problem is then they know where you live, so they could show up without you wanting to. So you just have to take them out. Hey, you coming over to my house? Yeah. Well, meet me over at this gas station. What? This pickup truck. Hey, put a bag over everybody's. Ball gags and bags. Bring them in here. Shut the door. Close the garage. Okay, you guys are in here. Where am I? None of your business. Put uh, tape up the windows. I told you it was a clandestine game. People don't know where the hell they're at. Okay, we'll tell you where it is. Can you take the ball gag out now? Nah, we'll leave the ball gag on for a little bit longer. And that's you gotta roll to see what turn that comes off on. Oh shit. Oh, it didn't roll a 6. Got stuck with it for another turn. Oh man. Well, I wasn't in a good mood today, but you guys fixed that. Thank you. Checks in the mail. So I watched a video about a month ago, and not to name any names, but these guys do really good videos, and they hadn't done a video in a long time, and they came back with a video that had Nerd Burglar written all over it. I'm like, this is the video where I'm like, I am not a gamer, and this is a very popular channel. They do great videos, but I am not going to force people to play my game to wear fucking hats. Or we're not going to be like, hey, we're gonna play Colonial Infantry. Okay, everybody put their pith helmet on. I'm like, awkward. But I guess I don't make a very good gamer. That solves so many problems. It does, but only if you have like a little thing here to catch that. Never mind. I thought about it too much. No, but seriously, I like that whole thing. Not know where they are, because if you don't want them to come back, you can just be like, they just show up every time. Hey, I'm back here again. When are you guys gonna play? I had one game that I put on at a store a long time, a long, long time ago. We're probably talking about more than 30 years ago. And it was a modern game. We were playing Command Decision. The modern version of Command Decision, which was called Combined Arms. It's a 1 to 5 scale game by Chadwick, using micro armor and stuff. So it was some fold gap game we were playing. This guy came in here with his girlfriend, was at a hobby store, and the guy was currently in the Marines, and he's one of those guys that gives Marines a bad name. Like was damaged somehow, because he just kept, hey, is that, oh, can I use this passing through? I want to play, and he had a voice like that. So I want to play. I was mortar man, and it's like, you got any mortar man? I said, no, we don't actually have any U.S. troops here, because in that game, like if you had like U.S. troops with like tanks, they would just tear everything up to bits, and that was in the late '80s. It was just like, you show up with an M1 with thermal sights, and like, well, that'll ruin the freaking game. It's kind of like that movie, The Final Countdown. The Nimitz shows up in 1941, and it's over. So we don't have any Americans here. So, well, I won't play. I won't play. I won't play Americans. I was mortar man. Mortar base weighs 40 pounds. Mortar tube weighs 15 pounds. Mortar man, and he was just started. He started just reciting all this stuff like, "This is my rifle. This is my." I'm like, oh my god, this poor guy has been. He's like a tape that doesn't end, and I'm like, I don't want that guy in my house. I mean, I appreciate you being in the service, but I don't know what the hell they did to you. You are a ticking time bomb, and I can't see how much fuse is left. You're in the wrong place when the game host has a prop closet. Yeah. Okay, everybody, grab a cape. Yeah. Everybody, take off all your clothes and put on a cape. We're playing Spartans. Not my kind of play. Sorry. He's got three different colored wires. I know he knows which one diffuses him. Yeah, poor guy, man. I see people like that, and I just assume that they're not damaged goods. I assume that they got damaged somehow in the line of fire. But this was like 1990. I mean, unless he got damaged in Grenada, but he wasn't old enough. He was close to my age, anyways. I had a neighbor. I've talked about this guy before. The neighbor that used to live next to me. He's he's what do you call it? He's a disabled veteran. I don't know what they put through him, but he's got his house that he mows a lawn at night. He had the aluminum foil over all his windows. It's like, man, it's the guy's he went through some shit. It's a shame. It's a shame that they get put through stuff like that. Yeah, used to mow a lawn at night. He had a battery powered lawnmower or wind up or something like that. It wasn't like he was like, in the middle of the night. Yeah, that's you can't do stuff like that. You can't do stuff like that and not people come at you with like pitchforks and stuff. You know. Yeah, last Sunday a lawnmower man came here and he was already mowing at 7:20. I'm like, that freaking sucks. But at least it's not me out there mowing. Like, see that dude? He doesn't remotely look like me. It wasn't me. And sure enough, it woke up my wife and daughter. What the hell's he doing out there? Messing up my morning show too. There's some basic considerations you need to do if you've got neighbors. I remember one time I was out. When I was a kid, if you walked your dog, you didn't pick up their poop. It just happened. They pooped, right? And I'm not saying we should go back to that, but along with picking up their poop and stuff, there's other common courtesies. There's things that if you're walking an animal, you should be freaking embarrassed of your animal doing to you. Just like if you have a kid and he likes to kick things, and you go to somebody's house and say, "Here's my kid Bobby," and the kid wants to kick somebody in the shins, like you should be embarrassed of your kid fucking doing that, and and I mean, obviously, you're not teaching. Hopefully, you're not teaching them to do that. It's just kind of they act out or whatever it is, and the same thing with animals. They do their thing, and it's up to you to kind of curb that kind of behavior. So I'm getting ready to. I think I was getting ready to mow the lawn or whatever. So I'm already out in my front yard at the old house, and I was getting ready to mow the lawn, and this lady comes over, and she has this little dog, and there's nobody else. She's walking her dog, and there's nobody else anywhere on any other lawn out there. And the dog comes over to my lawn and takes a leak on my lawn. just when I'm out there getting ready to mow the freaking lawn. And she sees me. And I'm like, you would think that it's like, okay, the dog's going to go to the bathroom, pull him to go to any other lawn, because that's freaking embarrassing to have somebody that takes it's just disrespectful. It's just, I would never do that to somebody else. I'd be like, what the fuck do I say to the guy? I'm like, sorry, all these lawns, and you decided to take a leak on yours, which you're about to have to step all over. So enjoy walking on all the dog pee, you know? Good thing it was only that, not number two. But people just are clueless. You know, we had another guy that, you know, is like, they would leave, he would leave the doggy bags with poop, and he'd put them in other people's garbage cans. You know, so you don't even have dogs. It didn't happen to me, fortunately. But you don't even have dogs, and I have a garbage can that smells like dog shit, which of course, you know, is a wonderful smell. You know, especially when it's been, you know, in the Florida heat. It's like, who does stuff like that? You know, like, or another guy was like, he'd walk his dog. We found out who it was. He'd walk his dog with a little poop bag, and he'd leave the poop bags by the mailbox. You know, we had these like communal mailboxes, which I thought like that's a pain in the butt, because like if you ever lose that key, you know, they treat you like a freaking terrorist, worse than a terrorist. You know, to get another key, you know, they treat you basically like a subhuman being, because you need to get a copy of the key. So, but they would, you know, they had these communal like 8x8 boxes, which are great because if you go on vacation, then you know you don't have to worry about your mail disappearing. But he would leave the sacks of shit right there in the communal area where everybody would have to step on them to if they checked your mail. Like, and we tracked down who it was. It was some Russian dude. Sorry, not all Russian people are like that, but this guy happened to be Russian. So I'm just saying, you know, exactly. I don't have a pet, so I certainly don't want to have to deal with other pets of others on my property. Exactly. It's like you should embarrass you as a pet owner. Like, oh shit, that happened. At least say, man, sorry, this little fucker. We're gonna beat him later. You know, and that's why we're taking him to the pound. I'd be embarrassed. You know. And it's just the irony. You have all the other lawns, and you come over to mine to take a leak, and I'm right there, and I'm getting ready to step on it. Like I don't even get like waiting for like a good rain or whatever to dilute it. As some people don't care. I just expect the same kind of treatment that I would do to somebody else. I wouldn't do that to somebody, you know. There's all kinds of stuff people did. I did a stint working at a software store in the late eighties, in the late eighties, for a little while. And back then, you could like, if you worked there, you could take a game out. So you could be like, hey, I want to play this game. This is back in the days of floppy drives. It's like, hey, I want to try this Red Baron or whatever. So you go and you take Red Baron for a spin. But you got to bring everything back in the condition like it's basically unused. Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't supposed to tell you that. Well, that company's out of business now, and I'm not sure if that's the reason why. But anyway, so I did it a couple times. You know, I'm careful with books, anyways, right? Especially if it belongs to somebody else. But we had to take like things back that other people would like. They would, you know, they'd try the software and it wouldn't work on them. When they come back and the manual was already looks like it'd been, you know, it could have been, you know, sat on by an elephant or worse. You know, it's like, no, we got to take that. Like, who does stuff like that? You know, that was the one job I actually like going to. I actually like going to that job. Yeah, it was only temporary Christmas help. That was fun. Working in a mall in the 80s, that was fun. Of course, worked in the nerdiest store in the mall, so I don't know. It'd probably be worse to work in Radio Shack. It wasn't Radio Shack though. My dad would call it radio trash. I'm sure somebody's out there still enjoying their Tandy computer. I always wanted a Commodore 64 because I made all the games for them. Never got one. Now I look at them like, why would somebody want a computer? Your arrow things are there's only two arrow buttons. So like it's a left, it's a left and a right. But if you want to go to the right, you had to hit Shift to switch it over. Like, really, there's not any more real estate to put the arrow key somewhere else. I mean, like, maybe other versions of the Commodore did. But the one I saw was like, there's only how come there's only two arrow buttons? Like, working in the mall during the golden age of malls. Yeah. Ours is, I never go to it. You know, I could be like, man, Walmart should be, but you know, I don't even like going to stores now. Every time I go to a store, I'm like, man, I should Amazon this. If I could Amazon things from the grocery store, I just Amazon things from the grocery store. You go and I dread asking somebody where something is. I went just before the storm. I needed to get some supplies at Lowe's. So I go up to Lowe's, and our Lowe's is actually really nice. It's live in a kind of 12,000 people town, and we've got a brand new Lowe's, and it's better than it's full size. But man, nobody that works at those places knows a damn thing. So I got this list of things that I need to get, and one of the things I wanted to get was wooden stakes. Just a simple freaking wooden stake. I don't need a special one to kill a level 12 to kill a level 12 freaking vampire. Just a standard freaking wooden stake. You know, 1x2, whatever, just already cut at 45-degree angles. Needed to tie some stuff down in some trees that didn't think we were gonna make it. I dread asking anybody everything because not only are you annoyed that they don't know anything, but they'll lead you in the wrong direction. And sure enough, I asked this guy who really looked like he should have been working at Pussyfoot's Paradise because that's what he looked like. He didn't look like a hardware guy. I mean, he made me look like Arnold. But anyway, so I go up to this guy. Oh yeah, they're in the back. So you go to the back and you look and you can't find them, and it's like, okay. I don't know why stores don't have a freaking app. No, seriously, why don't they have a store on the app where you can go onto there and you can use the same thing they have? Maybe don't need to have inventory, but like I'm looking for nails that are 16 penny, and you can look on there and I go, okay, that's aisle 25 or whatever, and you figure out yourself, right? So I go to this and I'm like, no, it's not here. I find somebody else in the back. Oh, that's outside. So I go all the way outside with a tire that's with a shopping cart that's been raped by a dinosaur. So it's always pulling to the left and it's got a wobbly tire. And I'm already getting wound up because I'm like, man, I got to get back to the house. And people are already acting like there's a storm coming in, and everybody's like in panic mode, even though wasn't really anything to panic about. So I go outside and I'm like, I can't find it. I walk up here, can't find it, can't find it. I'm like, let me just go ask somebody, where is it? Oh, it's on aisle 19. It's inside on aisle 19. I said, well, they told me it was out there. Well, they're wrong. So I go back inside and I'm like, 33, 32, 31, 30. Well, it's not here. Oh, it's the other one. Okay, and we're like in 40 something. So I work all my way down. I get 20, 21, 20. It ends. Like there's no 19. Like, how can you tell me it's on an aisle and there's no aisle called that? So I called my wife up. I said, we're not getting those fucking things. I've gone across this store like 4 fucking times, and it was a trip that should have taken me 30 minutes, and it took like an hour. And I'm like, I'm burning daylight here. So I was gonna give up, and we finally tracked down where they were on an aisle that wasn't even labeled where it was. And I'm like, I just every time I go to a store, I'm like, I wish I just would have Amazoned it. It's just that's how everything is, and it's like nobody knows anything, or they tell you wrong information, or. And people really dislike self-service, and I like it because that's one less person I don't have to deal with that's going to lead me astray. Just let me get in and get out, man. The only place I like to spend a lot of time like that is like at a hobby store or a craft store or anything. Any place other than that, I want to get what I'm getting and get the heck out. But I don't really go to stores anymore. I don't need anything, so it's not like I'm like it's not like I'm not going to Best Buy anymore. I don't need anything at Best Buy. But I'll tell you the stores I really don't like, or stores where shit's hidden. And what I mean by that is, I just think we no longer, I just no longer want to deal with stuff like that. Like, for instance, any shoe store where it's like you have models of shoes, but none of them are up there. So you have to ask somebody, do you have this in a such and such size? And then, invariably they don't have it. So then they bring you something else that you didn't ask for. And then it's like, I want this. I don't like that. I don't like the other thing. Do you have it? So I want to go to the self-service places. I don't want to go to some place that, you know, Circuit City used to be. I used to hate Circuit City because that's how it was. Like nothing was up front. The only place I could tolerate that way was service merchandise. Because service merchandise, I used to always get my watches from there. We're going way back. We're not way back, but 1990, 91. I always get my watch. They always had a good selection of watches. But everything else is like hidden. Like, I want this. Well, bring the little ticket, and then you go all the way to the back, and there's like two trolls working in the back, and like, it's just a box. They bring you the box of whatever it is that you have. But like those days are like gone. I don't go to a store like, like looking for sneakers, and it's like you got to ask somebody. You got to wait till somebody gets there, and then ask for them if they have it in the back. Hobby stores I actually want to spend time in so I can look at stuff that what and the hobby store, you don't want somebody coming up to you, can I help you with this? Like, I went to this hobby store in Orlando a couple of months ago, like 2 months ago, and I was floored because it was like a real hobby store. I mean, they had like trains and shit, like you can't find places to have that anymore. And all the time, hey, let me know if I can help you find something. I was like, first of all, and I didn't tell him that. I'm like, yeah, I'll let you know. I'm not gonna fucking let you know anything. I mean, I used to work at a fucking hobby store. Okay. Second of all, I'm ecstatic that there is one here, and I want to look in every a nook and cranny. There was actually a hobby store. It wasn't full of dust and stuff, so their merchandise somehow moved or whatever. It was a little difficult to get to with all a bunch of one-way roads and stuff, um, but yeah, I don't want to be bothered in a hobby store. Just leave me alone. Unlike a regular store, just need to be in there. Yep. What pet peeve is when you walk in a store and the clerk acts like you're a huge inconvenience? Um, yeah. I don't know. I actually don't need somebody that works at a store unless it's like I can't find something. We've had really good luck actually in places if you're buying a TV. They usually have places, people that really know about their television, because you got questions like you're going to spend some money on that. Like I got, questions that need to answer. And the last couple times I've had to do that. I've had some pretty knowledgeable people or computers and phones. Except, they're always there's some products I'm just never gonna buy, and like you are pissing up a rope trying to convince me to buy certain products. Like, I'm not getting an Apple phone. The only reason to get an Apple phone is that I can ask my wife, hey, how do you do this? Right? Because I could just ask her because she's got one and the daughter has one. I can ask them. But I would have to relearn how to everything's done. And You don't want to deal with me asking you every single thing. I'm not going to get one. You know, it's just not going to happen. So every time you go to his phone, oh, you really should get an Apple phone. I'm like, no, we need more brands of phones, not less. You know, and if you're an Apple phone user, cool. You know, the two girls in my family like them. I'm not willing to relearn everything. I already have a job that is way too challenging after I've been doing it for 30 fucking years. So I don't need to be challenged just having to make a phone call. Like, I don't even know how to pick up their phone when it rings. I'm like, here you go. You know, and then inadvertently, when I hand it to them, I end up pressing like three other buttons because the buttons on their phone are in a totally different place than mine are. You know, so I'm not, you know, don't go and try to convince me to buy something that I'm not interested in. Don't be salesy with me. I remember when we did our second lease on the Camrys. The first Camry that we leased, because we did double leases, we were comparing a couple different vehicles, and it won out. It was like I forget what year, 2012 or something like that. Anyways, I really liked the way it looked, and you know, it won out. It was my first Toyota that I'd done, and it turned out to be a fine vehicle. But you know, they refurbished it for the next model, and I remember taking it in for the first service, and the guy goes, "Hey, how do you like the new face make, the new styling of it?" And I'm like, honestly, it looks like shit. I mean, it looks great on the inside, but it looks like crap on the outside. I don't like it because of this. And the guy's like, never mind. Well, I mean, you know, if you ask me a question, be prepared to get an answer you may not like. You know, it being a fine car, I just didn't like the styling that they did with it. And then the next model that we did of it, they brought it back. It looked decent again, you know. But that 2015 model Camry, I did not like it. It looked great on the inside, but didn't like it on the outside. Yeah. Anytime I go look at cars, man, I'm up front with those people. You know. Oh, you interested? I don't want any of that fucking technology of changing lanes bullshit crap. Because I want Bluetooth. I want a stick shift. I want a stick shift. I want Bluetooth. What else? Um, AC. That's it. I don't even need power windows or none of that stuff. I mean, they all come with power windows, but you know, they try to convince you, no, you really don't want a stick shift. You don't fucking know who you're dealing with. Yes, I do. I don't want automatic headlights. I don't want headlights that are driving in the middle of the. I don't want headlights that are on while in the middle of the day while I'm driving. Not interested. And sure enough, you get used to not automatically turning them on yourself. You know, it's muscle memory. And next thing you know, you're driving around at night without them on because you went to a different vehicle. Or that thing that turns off your engine turns off in the middle of the when you're driving around. You got one of those cars, Rick, that does that shit? You know, you're driving around maybe in the bad part of town, like, man, I gotta get out of here, and you're to stop, and all of a sudden your engine just stops. I'm like, holy fuck! I hope it starts up again. What if those putting with cahoots with the people like, you know, we're not selling enough starters. How do we sell more starters? I know. Put it so that when you're every traffic light, your engine stops and you have to use a starter an extra time. No. Yeah, I don't know that there's a way you can default to it being off. Every time every time you restart my wife's car, you have to press that damn button. Mine doesn't have it. Mine doesn't have it because it's a stick shift. And what I heard is this last year they found a way to circumvent that. I said, well, you know what? I'm not upgrading to one of those cars. or lane assist or all that stuff. It's bad enough. My car actually had a little light. Has this thing called I forget what it's called, but so supposedly you don't roll back when you drive a car. Well, you know what? You know what you do to prevent that? Freaking don't roll the car back, right? I mean, people have been driving a stick shift for years and didn't have that. Well, now they have this anti rollback thing. It's this little symbol of this little slope thing like a hill with a car on it. And when it's not, and the problem is it kind of holds back your RPM some, so it makes shifting from a stop into first even more jerky. And my car has a shitload of torque. It has actually too much torque, and it's very jerky. It's not smooth to drive all the time. So you have to extra rev it and it becomes even jerkier. I'm disabling that. Well, when you disable the thing, there's a little light that comes on that shows a car on a hill and a yellow light on all the time, constantly. And there's no way to disable that light. So you don't want to see these lights that all of a sudden you're not paying attention to, like, because again, it's muscle memory, and you just get used to, like, start ignoring lights on your dash, and it might actually be something important. So I just took a piece of black electrical tape, and put it over it, and it's kind of in a dark spot anyways, so you can't even see the electrical tape. So done, you know. But they create things that don't need to be, that nobody asked me to create. How about creating somebody that goes to work for me while I sit here and do this? That's the AI that I want. Man, it's almost 11 o'clock and it's a work night. Well, I guess today made up for yesterday. That couldn't get on a roll yesterday. We're going to finish this guy up and then we're going to call it an evening. Yeah, sometimes I'm just brutally honest and I don't care. I don't care what people think of me. I've gotten to the point where it's like, let me at least be different and just tell people to their face stuff that they're not used to hearing. I had this one guy that started working. He's been there less than a freaking year. And I had some kind of interaction with him, and he said something along the lines of, well, I couldn't make it. I didn't make it in, but I still work from home. And I'm like, I've been here. I didn't miss a beat. I'm like, I've been here 30 fucking years, and I haven't been able to work from home one fucking day, and I'm fucking bitter about it. And that's it. And he's like, he walked away like he didn't know what to do with it. Well, it's true. I'd like to just work from home one fucking day, wearing this. I don't need to be running around naked. I could wear whatever the hell Rick wears all day long. Well, maybe not. What do you wear? You don't wear a lederhosen or anything, do you? You're not one of them creepy Germans, are you? Nope. You can wear whatever the hell you want. Keep your work environment and whatever temperature you want it to be, and nobody has anything to say about it. Some short sighted tea, exactly. Exactly. If you're cool, you get a lot more work done. If I work from home, I'd kick so much ass up. Well, I think. Oh, at least give me a freaking chance. Like, hey, I've worked for 30 freaking years at a place. Well, you get to work from home. You haven't even been here a fucking year, man. Well, it's just a job I do. Well, hopefully you're underpaid. All right. Well, I'm gonna wrap this guy up, and that leaves us with, I don't even know how many of these guys I did. Probably only about 8 because I had some of them done. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 guys left to do the base color on. It takes a while, but I appreciate you guys hanging in here with me and knocking it out. And we will catch you guys on the next one. Yeah, almost a 2.5 hour session on at like an 8:30 start. So that's pretty good. All right, folks. Appreciate you as always.